Welcome, guys. This product is called Just Stand Up, kind of Derek Lewis inspired. And I'm going to try to explain why the having the ability to just stand up really kills a lot of jiu-jitsu. And it took me about 15 years to figure this out. But to help me in this product, I found the two ugliest people in the gym. I'm trying to make myself look better by comparison. We got Maddie Clark and Spencer. Spencer is the third Ryan sibling. He's the little sister of the famous brothers, right? Guys, but this product, again, is going to focus on basically the premise of why jiu-jitsu doesn't work in the MMA rule set. It's going to be a technical sort of analysis, and it's also going to take into account some rules considerations, right? The rules of MMA definitely don't favor jiu-jitsu. They favor wrestling. A lot of people understand this, but I want to break down technically why wrestling works so good in a sense of being able to turtle and stand up in an MMA rule set, and why a lot of the skills MMA fighters have and obviously wrestlers will still work very well in a jiu-jitsu setting. Having the ability to stand up and shake guys off, strip grips, is very, very effective in a pure grappling environment as well. So again, you guys might watch MMA. A good recent example, Charles Oliveira obviously got submitted by Islam. Everyone looks at that, goes, jiu-jitsu guy gets submitted by a sort of Sambo wrestler base. But there's tons of examples throughout of guys that are just really good at shaking better grapplers off them. Kelvin Gastelum, obviously Derek Lewis, super, super famous for this. Another one, sort of unknown one you guys should definitely watch, Ian Heinisch, crazy scrambling abilities. And they're using more wrestling techniques to beat jiu-jitsu guys than they are obviously using jiu-jitsu techniques to beat jiu-jitsu guys. I'm going to try to outline why the basic jiu-jitsu methodology of the bottom game is sort of a way to pin yourself. Jiu-jitsu always wants you to keep your opponent between your legs, whether that's a half guard, a closed guard, or really even a butterfly guard. That's their natural sort of defensive position. But keeping someone between your legs keeps you pinned to the ground. Gone are the days of a technical stand-up. Technical stand-up works great if someone keeps distance from you. No one keeps distance from people anymore. If they have any fear at all, you're going to try to stand up, they're going to close the distance so close the technical stand-up is gone. Jiu-jitsu also discourages turtling. And turtling is really the only way you are going to get up off the ground. Obviously, we could use a submission. We could use a sweep. Those are really low percentage compared to turtling to stand up. So turtling in a jiu-jitsu context, up to a referee's position, stripping grips, creating scrambles out of those positions, even shaking guys off when they have one hook, even if they use a power half. There are really safe strategies to get up from these positions. And again, jiu-jitsu discourages you from turtling, really. They always talk about back exposure. Don't provide back exposure to your training partners, to your opponents. But there are times when back exposure is your only way to get up off the ground. So we can't just rule that out. Another problem jiu-jitsu has is they want to encourage back exposure. So quite often you'll see guys talk about, we're going to pass the side control, we're going to leave the guy space to turtle, and we're going to jump on their back. I think that is low percentage against guys that are good in the turtle position, which a lot of people haven't dealt with because, again, most jiu-jitsu schools discourage the turtle game altogether. Just look at Eduardo Tele's career. IBJJF, based on the way points work, wouldn't reward him for reversals from turtle. He wasn't rewarded for it. And again, in the sports jiu-jitsu context, if something's not rewarded, most gyms, even if they aren't competition focused, sort of loosely move in that direction, right? So again, another example of rules guiding the sport. And again, why jiu-jitsu has moved in a direction away from sort of that MMA style grappling where we're shaking people off again. So I'm going to go through this in more detail in the introduction to sort of demonstrate these principles. But again, I just want you to remember, jiu-jitsu's defensive guard play is a way to pin yourself. Wrestling, turtle, referee's position, stand up, although seems risky, is really your only path to standing up from the bottom position. Right, so let's put some more detail into what I mean when I say jiu-jitsu teaches you how to pin yourself, right? So again, if you look at, say, Maddie's hit a double leg and we've hit this position here, he's on top. The natural jiu-jitsu response would be to use our legs defensively, and that is to start bringing our legs back in between us and our opponent here, right? And that might involve getting a half guard here, sneaking in a half guard, half a guard. So obviously he's halfway to having a full guard. Again, the guard considered defensive position. And he might even try to bring this knee back in to get both legs back in front and to play out of the closed guard position. But if Maddie stays heavy here on the hips, and now Spencer's trying to get up, no chance he's going to get up out of this position. Same from if we go back to half guard here. If Maddie uses, let's face both heads this way, right? If Maddie controls this bottom leg and Spencer can't retract this leg and we stay heavy on the hips, he's never going to be able to get up from these positions here. So jiu-jitsu teaches you an instinctual response that pins yourself. So if we think about that in an MMA sports-specific rule set, if we stay on bottom the whole round, we're going to lose. So when MMA fighters might hit a double to side control and a jiu-jitsu guy puts them back into a guard position, they are pinning themselves and basically causing them to be held in this position the whole time. You might find examples, guys like Charles Oliveira, where he will have such an offensive guard from bottom, he scares opponents or he threatens submissions and they back up. That's not the norm here. That's super, super high level jiu-jitsu. So again, I want you to think about this, right? You'll see, say Spencer's in half guard here. You'll see guys like Kelvin Gastelum. You'll even see guys, like if you watched the Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz fight, right? Izzy left his legs uncrossed here. He left them uncrossed. Kelvin will let guys pass. When Kelvin fought Robert Whittaker, Whittaker could hold him down while he was in half guard. But the second he started progressing to a side control here, he just gave up the side control. Kelvin would turtle, get up, shake him off straight away, right? So again, remember the half guard primarily is a pin position and you will not get up from half guard. Obviously, we talk about an offensive half guard where we secure the underhook, we get up off our back, we start to hit the outside hook, the Kosoto hook, and start to climb up. That's a totally different thing. He's won many, many battles within that position. But for the most part, when we sit in half guard top here and we control the bottom leg, we control the hips, we prevent the hips moving away, it's very, very difficult to get out of these positions. So obviously, I want you to think about this. I want you to drill this with your training partners here, right? Because what I'm saying, a lot of people instinctually not want to believe. They look at jiu-jitsu as the be-all end-all of ground grappling in whatever rule set. Because again, back in the day, obviously early UFCs and stuff, this was the most effective form of martial arts. But with your training partners at home, I want you to tell the top guy to always be heavy on the inside leg from half guard and to be heavy on the hips from closed guard and just see if you can get up. I'm pretty sure, unless your training partners are absolutely awful, you will not be able to get up from these positions. But again, I want you to experiment with it, feel it for yourself, and that'll help you understand sort of why these positions are self-limiting if our goal is to get back up. Another bad habit for a sort of pinning environment here is how jiu-jitsu will reward guard passes to side control, right? So obviously, let's say Maddie's in half guard here. Obviously, best case scenario would be for Matt to pass this position to mount. However he uses that, right? He progresses to mount. He keeps control over Spencer's hips here by being heavy on the hips. And he can keep some upper body weight, Spencer's upper body here, flattening out the shoulders, basically chest to chest pressure here. That's perfect. I totally encourage that. For most of my students, I always recommend force a half guard to progress to mount, but never progress to side control. I believe rewarding passes to side control has given us bad habits. So another example here, if Maddie hits a knee cut here and he passes to side control, we might hold him in a jiu-jitsu setting for the 3 seconds that would secure us points. But even in a sports jiu-jitsu setting, when we land in side control, more often than not, we get the pass points, but the bottom guy brings his knee back in and starts securing a guard again. So it becomes this loop where we pass the side, we hold it long enough to secure it, because a lot of the times, the second we make any grip adjustment, we give him space here. But then again, in another way to look at this, and the reason why a lot of wrestlers and MMA guys don't want to keep you between the legs is because you can see Matty's control here, he's got a crossface. So it's going to be hard for us, the bottom player, Spencer here, to turn in, right? And Matty's got far hip control. His elbows on the hips. This is a pretty decent pin, but you don't have really any control over Spencer's legs here. Spencer can power out of this and aggressively turtle away. And now we have a game where Matty's trying to chase back control here, right? So again, in a perfect setting, when we're pinning someone, they don't get to make any movements. They might start making small movements that lead to bigger ones. But in this side control position here, it's actually quite easy for Spencer to take that risk and turn to turtle here. And again, a lot of your coaches, a lot of people will say it's easy to take the back. You sort of pass the side, crossface blocks him turning in to get an offensive sort of bottom game back. But we want them to turn away and we're going to jump on their back. That's much easier said than done. And again, the reason I believe it's so easy in a jiu-jitsu setting is because no one knows what to do from turtle. They get to turtle and they get scared, and at best they might roll back to guard. But again, they encourage that risky behavior of allowing the bottom guy to turtle and hoping we can get hooks here. But again, you look at an MMA context, you look at really even in an ADCC context where guys are developing better turtle positions, that's a hard position to attack. If I would have want to take someone's back, I would pass 2 mounts to come back. Say we pass the mount instead of side control here. We're in charge the whole time. We're still pinning the whole time. Now we're climbing elbows up. We can start using the threat of arm triangle to create a slight bridge. And we're completely in control of the back taking position here. We're not allowing Spencer to expose his own back. We're forcing a safe back exposure while keeping legs in control of the body. So just to summarize again, right? Sports jiu-jitsu encourages the side control position. And the side control position, I personally believe, is actually quite a weak pinning position. There's a reason a lot of the times in a wrestling environment, if we shoot a double, we'll step over the leg into a half guard because that's such a strong position. I'm going to show you why later in details about how to control half guard, how a good half guard prevents our guy on bottom from turtling. So just if Matt steps the half guard in, if Spencer tries to turtle here, really goes for it, really turns. So even if we don't have upper body control, we're just heavy on the leg here, he can't really get his hips off the ground here, right? If we come back and we're in side control, he can whip his hips far away and force a turtle here. So again, a lot of the things we're rewarded for in a point setting actually go contrary to what we need to use to control our opponents here.